Hello students, this is a quick screencast to show you how to work on body paragraph 2 for the revolutions essay. Body paragraph 2 is all about the changes that occur as a result of revolutions. In this paragraph, your goal is to report and analyze the effects of the revolution. You're essentially going to have two parts of this paragraph. The first part is going to talk about positive effects of the revolution you chose to study. And the second part is going to talk about negative effects of the revolution you chose to study. This is very similar to body paragraph 1. You're going to follow the same format in body paragraph 1. In this screencast, I'm going to show you how to do a body paragraph, focusing on just the first half of the paragraph. So we're going to put in positive evidence. We're going to write context for that positive evidence. We're going to explain our positive evidence. We will write a claim, but it'll only really be half a claim because we're not getting into the negative yet. And we are going to explain how the evidence that we have supports the half of the claim that we have written. When you're doing this independently, you are of course also going to be working down here with the sections of your body paragraph that are about the negative effects of the revolution. In order to sort of take that off our plate right now, I'm going to block out mine, just so you know that we're only focusing on half, but when you write, you'll be doing both. So looking at the instructions, the first thing that you need to do is grab your evidence. You should already have this in your step 4 document. So we're going to pull positive evidence. I'm going to borrow from a student's document. This student was studying the Egyptian Revolution. I'm going to take her positive evidence, come back to the essay, and put that positive evidence in as her quote. So her quote is, "Morsi, the first Islamist to be elected as head of state, is also the first civilian leader in Egypt. He promises to be a president to all Egyptians, and yanks open his suit jacket to show the cheering crowd that he is not wearing body armor, underscoring that he is not afraid." So the next thing we needed to do is provide context. Remember, context is like the big picture understanding that students need in order to know what your evidence is talking about. You should refer to the context rubric, understand that you need to provide general background info as well as introduce the source itself, and look down to the examples and sentence starters provided. The context for this quote would need to help us understand what the climate in Egypt was like before and during the revolution, to show why it's such a big deal that this president is not wearing body armor, is not afraid, and is going to represent all Egyptians. So mine won't be perfect because I haven't studied this as intensively as the student has, but I would say something like, for many years prior to the Arab Spring movement, Egypt had been ruled by, and just so I make sure I get the spelling correct, Mubarak rather. Okay. Period. He had ruled, oops, we're coming in the wrong color here. Let's just make this all the right color for us. Nope. He had ruled Egypt as a dictator, more or less, without holding any legitimate elections or adhering to the will of the people. So this is showing that these people hadn't had representation for many, many years, which goes into why this is going to be so important. After the Egyptians brought down Mubarak, they were eager for a government that would represent their interests as shown by, and that's where we're leading right into the quote. So as shown by the PBS News article titled, "What's Happening Since Egypt's Revolution?" As shown by the PBS News article titled, "What's Happening Since Egypt's Revolution?" which states that, and we don't actually need this other comment. And this really leads right into the quote. Of course, now we've inserted our evidence from the Step 4 document. We've provided context. The next step is coming up, and we need to explain our evidence. You've already done this. Remember, you've already done 1 and 3. They're both in your Step 4 document. So coming back down, or Step 4 document. Open up Step 4. And I will borrow again from our student. Coming back. The student said that Morsi is the first new president that was sworn in after Hosni Mubarak. He promises to be a good president and help everyone fix the broken nation. Morsi shows that he isn't wearing armor in order to establish trust and show that he truly believes that the nation can get through this together. So thinking about the next phase where we are going to write our claim, remember in our claim we previewed the arguments that we made in this paragraph in order to determine if the revolution was ultimately more beneficial or detrimental to the country. So in our claim, we're going to argue that although I think we should argue that it's more beneficial for the country, I'm just going to give you a little bit of teacher insight here. But in the claim, you would need to introduce both the positive and negative effects. So I would say although, and then maybe insert negative effects here. And if I was doing the entire part of this body paragraph, then this is where I would talk about the negative things that are happening, comma, and this is now where I'm going to insert the positive things. Egypt's revolution was ultimately more beneficial than harmful because the people of Egypt now have leadership that represents the interest of the people, period. So that means I'm arguing that it was beneficial because now the people of Egypt have leadership that represents them. They have a government that takes their interests into light. So coming back down, the last thing I need to do is explain how my evidence, my positive evidence, supports this part of my claim. Looking to the explaining evidence rubric. Remember, you should always look to these rubrics, especially to see what you're going to need to do. So part 1 that you already did was accurately explaining the meaning of the selected evidence. And now in part 2, you're explaining how the evidence supports the claims that you made. To push it up to a 6, you need to also acknowledge weaknesses or gaps in your evidence. I'm probably going to be writing this at a 5 right now. You should also reference the examples below because this example shows you really clearly what the differences between the different levels are, using India and Gandhi as an example. Additionally, there's some sentence starters below that'll be super useful for you while you are writing this part of the explaining evidence. So jumping back, I need to explain how my evidence supports my claim. And let's color code all of this just so we're doing this in a consistent manner. Okay. So we have claim, context, selecting evidence, explaining evidence, and now the final part. The evidence presented supports the claim that Egypt revolution was beneficial Egypt's revolution was beneficial because it brought about a government that represents the interest of the people. The evidence presented supports the claim that Egypt's revolution was beneficial because it brought about a government that represents the interest of the people. I would actually say because it shows that the revolution brought about a government that represents the interest of the people. By appearing before Egyptians without body armor, Morsi is showing that he will not rule through oppression and that he is willing to enter into a relationship with the Egyptian people in which neither side has reason to fear the other. This is especially relevant given the disorder and chaos in the years since Mubarak lost power that led up to the event that the quote is from, because it shows that Morsi is serious and determined to live according to his statement. If you were pushing to a 6, I would go on to say that this evidence could be improved because it's just showing goodwill. It's showing that Morsi isn't afraid of the Egyptian people. It's not necessarily showing that he's actually acting in a way that is going to represent the will of the people. So taking it to the next level, we would really need to see how his actions back up what he's saying, or his political actions as opposed to the statement of appearing in front of the people. As you're working, refer to the screencast, refer to the example presented, and as always, make sure you are reaching out to your teachers for support. Thank you.